Welcome to the Digital Amateur Television Experimenters Night. This is VK7 OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania. Amateur radio is a worldwide hobby that has many different aspects. Digital television is just one of the many modes and areas that are covered. Maybe you're interested in becoming involved in the DATV Experimenters Nights. You realise that you do not have to be a radio amateur or need any ATV equipment to participate anywhere in the world. Also participate on the night by coming up to the Queen's Domain club rooms. Yes, right on top of the Queen's Domain in the heritage-listed Coast Wireless Station. You never know, we might get you in front of the camera or behind doing one of the many roles during the night. We get underway with our program on a Wednesday night from 7:30pm local time. We'll see you soon. This is VK7 OTC.
Okay, this is VK7 OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania with our DATV Experimenters Night, and this is the 14th of April, and I'm not quite sure where 2021 is going, but it's going very fast. Good evening, Rex.
Good evening, Justin.
A regular contributor in Mr. Rex Monker, VK7 Mike Oscar. So just a reminder, you can call in on repeater 2. You can also call in on the chat channel. That's live, and that looks like there's a few viewers there already, and about 4. So by all means, throw some questions our way as we head through the night. Now, the reason that I have Rex in the studio is I came across an article, and just bear with me whilst I just get a few things happening here. The article actually came from... Oh, hang on. That was there already. Apologies about that. The article that I came across was actually in Southgate Amateur Radio News, and the title was what caught my eye, which was Using Whisper Data to Detect MH370. Now, that's the Malaysian Airlines flight that disappeared off the face of the earth, somewhere, they believe, in the Indian Ocean. And there's been numerous attempts to try and locate the aircraft, and none of them that successful. There has been bits of it washed up on distant shores, Madagascar, and all sorts of things. So it's certainly and as it says here, there were 239 people on board. Who basically disappeared. So in reading through this, there is a guy called Richard Godfrey who is suggesting that we could potentially use whisper transmissions across the Indian Ocean to assist with the location of the aircraft when it was obviously still in the air. And when I dug into this, it's actually drawn from a source by Dr. Robert Westphal, who is DJ for Fox at the HamSCI Workshop 2021, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail shortly. But one of the, I suppose, the pretexts here is in the article that is referenced here, and I'll bring this one across. In the article that is written by Robert Godfrey, by Geoffrey Thomas, but cross links to the Robert Godfrey and the other Richard Godfrey, and the other German source article. Very interesting. Geoffrey Thomas refers to them as tripwires in the ionosphere, which I think is an interesting analogy here. But he goes into talking about WSPR, and there is a very interesting YouTube video that shows aircraft scatter. Now, I'll just open this up so that it's visible. Now you can see this is hang on, let me start that particular video again. I'll just explain what we're actually looking at here before we get all the noise. So this is a SDR receiver that is receiving FM radio signals. So this is 92.8 or something like that in the FM radio band. This is the path from A to B, which is this line here. That these two signals are being received between, and there is a plane that is this particular plane here crossing the path across here, and you'll hear so this is a reception of this particular radio station as the plane crosses the path between these two stations. So let me start the video. Here's the plane. Plane's coming up to the path. The plane's right on the path, and then it's going out the other side. And it disappears again. So this is very much, and one of the reasons I wanted Rex in here is Rex has a fair bit of experience in relation to aircraft scatter, and also WSPR, and which is a WSJT mode. So just I just want to go to the actual article that this is being sourced from. So the article by Robert Westphal, DJ4FF, that he presented at HamSCI 2021, and this is available on the various links. He calling it Geocaching in the Ionosphere, which is another title that caught my eye. Now, Robert goes into a bit of the introduction here around obviously the airliner disappearing, the particular mode that we're talking about here, including WSPR stations in Antarctica, and some of the effects that they have recorded, and this is further on in the actual article. The article's 40 odd pages long. There are lots of screen grabs of this particular phenomenon both from east to west, so Australia across to Africa, and also north-south between Antarctica and into Europe and the Middle East. So he goes through some of the effects, the aircraft scatter or the signal enhancement sorts of effects, and lots of examples where there is enhancement. And I'll just shoot through to his observations, aircraft to and from Antarctica. There is a station on it must be the German station, I assume.
Von Meyer or something, I think it's called. Yeah.
Where they have he's been whispering and then gathering data as planes have passed through the particular paths that they were entering. He does talk about the different aircraft that are going to and from Antarctica, including between Tasmania, our little Airbus that heads down to Wilkins, and a number of other aircraft that are going between different the Argentinian, the Americans, etc. And he talks about the different types of planes and the areas that are there. This is one of the reasons why it's 40 pages long.
When you say areas, the area of the plane?
They're over the Indian Ocean. So
but the physical area of the plane? That's the physical area that is blocked by the plane determines the strength of the signal.
Yeah, okay, the gain that you get from the enhancement.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't get a feel that he was.
Has he actually detected any planes on HF?
No, I'm not sure.
See, 91 megs is
VHF.
VHF, and the area of a plane in terms of wavelengths at 91 megs will be many.
Correct. Which means you get gain.
You get lots of gain.
Yep.
But if you're going to have to do it at HF,
the plane's not big enough.
I don't think it's big enough to get any significant gain.
So validation in. Now, I just wanted to shoot through to the actual discussion and the conclusions that he actually comes to here, because it's. See, we're talking about 10 and 18 megs here. This is the
10 megs makes sense.
10 megs and 18 megs.
Yeah, well, 10 megs gives you more gain than 18 or lower, so I can understand that. The problem is you've got to have propagation to get within the range of the aircraft at the frequency.
Correct. So what some of the data that he and the discussion he talks about is and it's not only using whisper here. So what he's trying to do, I think, is correlate some of the radar data that they are using in Antarctica and the whisper data, and trying to get some sort of correlation, which
when he says radar data, does he mean HF radar?
Good question. It is by using superdarn data in the southern hemisphere provided by the Chinese radar ZHO Beam 0 looking northeast.
See, for instance, there are HF radars that are investigating things, such as Tiger on Bruny Island.
Yep, yeah.
Which can see all the way to Antarctica.
Yep, okay.
So, I mean, a HF radar is sort of equivalent to Jindalee.
Yeah, and they actually talk about Jawn here. So they talk about the over-the-horizon radar.
I mean, I can't imagine that the people who looked for M870 didn't use Jawn data.
Looking in
And they, I suspect they didn't get anything.
Because he talks about, because they had a number of satellite pings as the plane was going across, which are the points that they actually have,
Yes.
and then it disappears. Surface, yeah.
I mean, the who was the Air Vice Marshal guy for Australia who did the investigation?
Not Angus.
Yes,
Angus Houston.
Houston. Now he'd certainly have access and knowledge of Jawn.
Well and truly. Well and truly. So,
I mean, they probably wouldn't admit to what Jawn could see, but if it gave them any clues, I'm sure it would have been fed into the investigation.
Well and truly.
Yeah.
And you can see some of the path detail that they're looking at here, where this is the path that they are suggesting. So these are the data points that they have, and there is a path that crosses between one and the other using the WSPR data. It goes into, okay, now just on this is where I wanted to be, the conclusion, because I just wanted to read out a few little steps in here. He talks about especially aircraft spotting in Antarctica has been demonstrated over thousands of kilometres. In addition, these effects can be used by WSPR stations with poor antennas to enhance their range, their radio range in WSPR via scatter, via aircraft or the ISS. Aircraft detection by WSPR is also feasible in the past back to March 2018 because of the WSPR database, which is that's okay. There's tens of millions of lines of data go into the WSPR database each year. The propagations software tools such as VeoCap online for hams and PropLab 3.1 for ray tracing, etc. are helpful and recommended as well. More intense research on the WSPR data of MH370 in mid-course and final flight phases will have to be accomplished. So they haven't. This is a suggestion paper. It's suggesting that the WSPR data and the aircraft enhancement data can potentially be used. Amateur radio can provide a great toolbox in order to achieve faster solutions for possible future cases such as MH370. Air traffic control is still not able to detect and track long-haul flights, which is one of the reasons they're putting satellite links into all aircraft, long-haul aircraft.
Yeah.
And future installations by radio amateurs such as space weather monitoring, remote SDRs, global distribution, ADSB receivers can be merged into an IARU global system, which is AA OHMS, not only to monitor band intruders, but also to provide a potent MIMO tool by amateur radio communities in order to prevent another years-long tragedy such as the MH370. So it's an interesting. I suppose it's an interesting idea to try and take WSPR data, and it's a bit better. Let's try that. it's just an interesting idea to take whisper data and combine it, I suppose. The thing I would be concerned about is the semi-random nature of whisper. So what you're transmitting is a 2-minute sequence on whatever the percentage you set WSJT to.
So you haven't got an actual reference.
Correct. You've got a time signature.
Yeah, but you haven't got a reference signal level.
Correct.
I mean, you do, but it might be 10 minutes or 20 minutes ago if it was only transmitting 10%.
Correct. And like a lot of things have to align.
I think the main problem is going to be that the gain that you get from aircraft scatter is a function of the area of the aircraft that intercepts the wave front.
Yep. Okay.
And that's why 2 meters works very well, because in terms of 2 meter squares of wavelength,
there's a lot of them on a plane.
There's a lot of them on a plane, and you can typically get 20 dB gain.
Okay.
And on 2 meters, it's very obvious when an aircraft goes past 20 dB, you see the signal go up.
Yep.
If you go up too high in frequency, you actually get much more gain. Like at 10 gigs, you get 60 dB gain.
Okay.
But the cost is the beam width is now so narrow that it never hits the ground, and you never pick it up.
Right. Okay.
But you do pick up the minor lobes.
Okay.
And it turns out that the minor lobes are about the same strength as independent of frequency.
Okay.
The only problem is they come and go as the elevation or the azimuth of the plane. So in terms of the minor lobes, on 10 gigs, typically when an aircraft goes past, you get a little burst for a couple of seconds.
Yep.
Whereas on 2 meters, you might get it for 2 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah.
And so forth. Now, the problem is you go lower in frequency so that you can get, because you know, we don't have VHF stations out in the middle of the Indian Ocean.
Correct.
Sending whisper.
Yep.
So you've got to go lower in frequency so you can get a signal that's propagated most of the time by the ionosphere. And you'd be very lucky to have the area of an aircraft more than one square wavelength at say 18 meters. So,
yeah. Well, truly.
I mean, to be the equivalent of 18 meters by 18 meters is...
That's a big aircraft.
That's a big
that's
aircraft.
Huge.
So you would only get, if you did have such a big aircraft, you're only going to get up 3 dB or 2.1 dB.
And would you see that with all the other effects of a HF propagation path?
Well, particularly as your signal reference is what the signal was the last time it decoded.
Yep.
And of course there's going to be QSB like there always is.
Yeah. Multipathing, selective fading, etc., etc.
Yes, so I think it's a battle. I mean, I think it's a really interesting thought, and I think that the way to decide whether it's worth doing is actually to do it on HF,
yep,
on a short path on HF, so that you don't initially have to worry about the effects of the ionosphere, and aircraft, because of height of aircraft scatter, or that aircraft fly, your path length can't be, it's got to be in the range of 300 to 800 kilometres.
Yeah, okay.
To be useful.
Yep.
But I think the first step would be on a path of say 800 kilometres where aircraft were flying across the path.
Yep.
See if you could send a single tone.
Yep.
So it's constant there all the time.
Yep.
And what's the amplitude? I'd be surprised if you got more than 2 or 3 dB.
Yep.
At
Increase.
HF. Now, obviously, you can go between sort of 18 and 10 metres will improve it. 50 megs will improve it, but of course the probability that you'll get an ionospheric extension of 50 megs
Is
at the same time is
quite possible during summer,
yeah,
but not during winter.
As well as that, the variability of sporadic E is so much that there's no way you'll be able to tell what's going on.
What the propagation rate is.
So my initial reaction is, yeah, a very interesting thought, but I'd want to at least establish on the very simple path
Yep.
how much variation you got,
Yep. Okay.
and then think about all the things that how you're going to vary it. Now, one of the things you can do is look for Doppler shifts. Doppler shifts are going to be very small at HF.
Yep.
So finding the Doppler shifts not going to be easy.
Yep. But what about you go to say 28 megs, 10 metres.
I think you would see the Doppler shifts. One of the advantages you've got with the low frequency is, well, the gain is not very high, the beam width is very large.
Yeah.
So you will see the enhancement
Yep.
over a longer period.
Yep. Okay.
That may or may not help, because what you really want is a short period so you can see it peeking out of the QSB.
And that's the key to the location element.
Yes, where it peaks.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, but I think there's a few things you'd want to do to actually prove that even on a short path without ionospheric effects,
Yep.
you can get sufficient enhancement to know what you're going to have to detect.
Yeah.
And
And then what you're going to have to look for potentially in the Whisper records.
yeah.
And there's an awful lot of records in there. You can cut.
Well, you know that you're looking at only a few hours,
Yeah.
because this
and a
plane could
few
only have
locations.
been in that range
Yep.
for a few hours,
Yep.
because it ran out of fuel after that.
Yep.
And you would also only need to look at Whisper records that effectively crossed this path.
Yep.
So you could cut it down to reasonable numbers.
Yep.
I mean, if you take the fact that at 2 metres typically the peak is, say, 20 dB over a period of about 2 to 4 minutes,
Yep.
then at say 10 metres, it's, and we don't even know that the band was open on 10 minutes at 10
Correct.
megs.
Correct.
Because I think, but
Although the 10 megs is grey line propagation. I see
oh,
that.
no, but I thought it was 10 metres he was talking about.
No, it's the records that he includes in his sorry, that was me saying, what about 10 metres? The records that are in his write up are 30 metres, so 10 megs and 18 megs.
Well, I think the fact is, once you go down to 10 megs, the gain is almost zero. The beam width's so wide that
Could be anywhere.
You don't know. You're not going to get any detectable
Difference,
difference.
Yeah.
That it'd be a really interesting. I think the first thing to do would be, say, do it at aircraft scatter at 10 metres.
Yeah.
Just over a short path, so you weren't worrying about the ionosphere.
Yep.
Do it with a single tone. You should be able to see the Doppler of the aircraft, and you get a bit of a measure of how much enhancement you're going to get.
Yep.
And then do the same test at 30 metres.
Yep. Yeah.
It'll be a lot worse.
Yeah. And see whether it's actually usable at 30 metres.
Yeah.
So go down to those HF frequencies they're talking about.
But
interesting theory.
Yeah.
And I'll just say the guy who wrote this article, DJ4 Fox. It's not saying this is the be all and end all, and he's going to find the plane. He's saying this is one of the tools in the toolkit that can potentially be used to correlate information. So yeah, that's what he's just saying. It's another tool, and it's actually an amateur radio tool. In fact, they were using the MPV Everest, which has been featured in the news just recently for the wrong reasons. But the MPV Everest was the ship they used to trawl the sonar to try and pick up the black box transmitters, and they were using Spectrum Lab.
They were. So amateurs did well, and that was a German ham, DLYHF, I think.
Yeah. So there's certainly been amateur radio involved with the search thus far. So, but anyway, it's interesting little article, and the geocaching of the Ionosphere I caught my eye because being a geocacher, and I showed you the geocaching log just earlier. So that's anyway. DJ4FF, it is available in the Southgate AI News as an article. Interesting to look at the paper, and we'll see whether they take it any further and come up with some potentially some comparison data. So yeah. Anyway,
okay.
Thank you, Rex. Thanks for your comments. In fact, there is some interesting. We might actually go on to that. I don't know who picked up. There was an article that came out at the 3rd of April about a Alaskan radio enthusiast. They cut it short to say he's a ham, and I'm not sure he is a ham, but he has an interest in. He has a definite interest in. I'll just head to. Let's go back to here. This is the article that appeared on the ABC News website. The Alaskan radio nerd listening to Tasmania from 13,000 kilometres away. So this is about. This is the guy who runs Peter. Molyneux, I think it is, who runs the radio station at a place called McGrath in Alaska, which is in the middle of Alaska. Like it's not just the capital of Alaska. It's right inland. It's definitely a remote location, and he actually he's a bit of an enthusiast that goes out. Here we go. Goes out and goes to some lengths to pursue his hobby, and his hobby is receiving broadcast stations, other than obviously Alaskan broadcast stations. And he actually heard the ABC Radio 936 AM station came through out of the blue for a short period of time. And he actually ended up featuring on. Here we go. He's the program director of 83.5 FM in McGrath, Alaska. Has a population of less than 400 people. And it shows some of the equipment that he's actually using, quite large broadcast type coils, antenna, and he says he gets the best radio reception during darkness.
That's true.
Waits for the grey line and the D layer to disappear. But the interesting thing was it was 936 ABC Hobart, and I actually in the RF the video section at the end of our broadcast, I've actually got the interview that the ABC morning program did with Paul. So through a very dodgy Skype session, because the internet connectivity into McGrath, I suspect, is not great. So anyway, it's a bit of a Tasmanian thing that I just picked out of the ABC news that they picked up on, and it actually went national on the ABC breakfast program. So the things you hear. The other thing I just wanted to point out was that I came across. We'll just go back here. I'll pull it across. This is an interesting concept here. For those people who don't know, Etsy is normally an arts and crafts website where there is people produce all sorts of things, and it can be anything and everything. And they sell it through a website called Etsy. And this particular guy has produced what he's calling a Ziptenna. Now, it's an interesting concept because what he actually does is it's specifically designed for handhelds to basically give you a tuned counterpoise on your handheld. So, and the interesting thing he's done is this is a bit like if I wear one at work, it has all my passes that let me through all my doors, and it's on a little spring-loaded arrangement that enables me to pull it out and obviously swipe my card, and then it disappears back onto my lanyard. Very similar idea here with this little thing here, but what he's done is the counterpoise, the little wire that you pull out, a little bit of I assume Litz wire or something, multi-cord wire, has little indicators on it to say this is for 2 meters, this is for 70 centimeters, this is for 6 meters, etc., etc. So you can actually pull the counterpoise out to the particular frequency that you're operating under. Now, if it actually says this particular see item details. Click on the right thing, Justin. So we'll just go through. That's it, and the handheld. This is the little video that goes with it. You connect it to. There's a little. It's usually your where you put the tag onto. I assume it's conductive, and you can then clip it onto your belt, and when you then operate, you pull out your handheld to operate with it, and it pulls out the counterpoise. Yeah. So interesting, bit of an interesting idea. That's his out and about kit. Ziptenna. Yeah, and it comes with a little clip and all of this sort of stuff. But just and the store that he runs is Quirky QRP, which I thought was quite an interesting arrangement. But it's interesting supplying, and he goes through the results that he's been able to get with it, extending the range, getting into repeaters where he couldn't normally get into it with just the rubber ducky antenna, So there appears to be some credence in providing a counterpoise for your handheld, and you can increase the distance of the antenna with the pull-out counterpoise. What I was going to do was grab a handheld and put a counterpoise on it and see whether it does improve those marginal signals. So and see whether we could do a similar thing. But anyway, unfortunately the item is now sold out, which it wasn't actually a short while ago. So he's obviously sold all of his Ziptennas. But anyway, interesting idea. And the things you come across on the internet when you're on leave and start browsing the internet. Which
you're on leave.
I'm on leave right at the moment. Yes, I'm on a week's leave, so I'm getting all of these jobs done, including some amateur radio jobs. So watch this space. Watch this space. Now, the last thing is we have. Let me go to here. We have. We didn't quite get to this last week because we reviewed the Low Key magazine, and right in the middle of last week, my hard copy of the latest amateur radio magazine appeared, and there is and the interesting thing I'll note here is I did see a post by the editor to a number of Facebook pages which had quite a different cover on here, so not quite sure what went on there, but there was quite a different cover on the magazine I saw on the particular Facebook pages. But anyway, we'll just go through quickly what's in here so you can get a bit of a feel. There's always the editorial, and a very sad editorial actually about Gary Johnson, who is was the founder of JCAR, who actually died really suddenly on the 10th of March after a short illness. So that was quite a sad bit. There's always the board comment by the president or a board member. WIA News. Now, does the ACMA propose to dump amateur radio? This is a very interesting article about Get Out of Our Hair, Class Licensing for All, which is all about the proposal from the ACMA about class licensing, which we've heard lots of on this particular program. And also, this is a fascinating little very Heath Robinson flowchart, which you follow your way through by Carmel Morris, who is VK2 CAR. So this is all about that. Now Andrew Anderson, VK3 CV, who is the guy that created the 122 gig kit, I think, from memory.
Yes. Yeah.
On practical communications at 30 terahertz. So this is in the infrared, so far infrared. Up here in the you can see here's light. There is lots of different water absorption peaks in here, and infrared all the way through to down to 3 gigahertz, which is the end of this particular scale. And it's interesting. He uses a exposed filament from a 12-volt down light as to transmit an infrared signal source. You can see this is one of the infrared cameras showing the source. Now, Fred Swainston collection of historic QSL cards continues to grow. Now, Dale Hughes, VK1 DSH, an Arduino controlled whisper transmitter with a Class E output stage. So a little project from Dale, and in fact, there's your could be your source for for testing the theory. Whispering on HF, no rig required. Grant Simmons, VK3ZTE. So I purely with a Raspberry Pi, and literally with a little bit of analog, only a little bit of analog. Basically, the GPIO pins straight into a driver with a low pass filter, and you've got yourself a transmitter. Jim Tregellis, VK5JST, SWR and the Meaning of Life, which is a fascinating article about SWR and what it actually really means. Bit of advertising. The HF Radio Club article. Now, I gave up HF black box operations and took up with a white box on microwave by yours truly.
Yes.
That title was changed too, actually, just... that was not my original title, but anyway. So, this is about my GippsTech exploits and my 10 gig GippsTech adventure. Fascinating little article by Peter Parker. Curious antenna coupler that has no variable capacitor. However, what he's actually done here is, this is a piece of PCB that he has cut into a variety of shapes, slowly getting smaller and smaller, and that's 226 puff, that's 116 puff, that's 62 puff, that's 33 puff, that's 19, 13, etc. And you literally plug into the particular capacitor that you want based on a piece of PCB. So that's Peter Parker and his antenna coupler. Escapade with a downed radio sonde by Peter Wolfenden, VK3RV. This is quite an old radio sonde.
I remember that.
Yeah. Rex is shaking his head here. I remember those radio sondes. And it's a radio sonde, it's not an Ionosonde.
Oh, well done.
VHF, UHF, an expanding world. And this is also includes Rex here, with the 10 gig terrestrial between him and Ralph, VK3WE.
No,
Rhett, sorry, Ralph.
You're
It's
thinking
W-R-E.
W-R-E.
There's an R in there. So this is Rhett, VK3 Whiskey Echo, and their findings of aircraft scatter,
yes,
and rain scatter.
Yes.
So and also this includes the contact, the Trans-Tasman contact. This is Rex's QTH, and this is Roger's QTH in New Zealand. So new distance record on 241 gigs by Mr. Coon himself. Bench notebooks by Roger Harrison, power supply hack, boost or buck. Soda and Parks, there is quite an extensive article by Alan Harvey, VK3 ARH, and they're gathering in Victoria. DX Talk by Steve Barr, VK3 KTT. Alara and the Alara gatherings, and their what they've been up to. WIA Awards by Mark Hillman, VK6 News, and I think that might be pretty much it. Silent Key, John Bishop, very sad, VK2ZOI. There's a few ham ads, and that's it. So that's what you're missing if you're not a member of the WIA, and that's what you get for 6 months of the year. Every 2 months you get a magazine, and I have to say it is full credit to the Publications Committee, because they have put lots and lots of technical articles into the magazine these days. So fantastic read and fantastic resource for experimentation, and yeah, anyway, and you even get some VK7s putting stuff in there as well. Now, just a reminder to finish off, our May presentation night, which is the 5th of May, is by Mike Groth, VK7MJ, on lightning whistlers and many other phenomena. So another one not to be missed from Mike. And staying with the mics, we have Mike Hawkins, VK7DMH, who is giving us a talk on satellite communication and his experimentation with antennas, satellite antennas. So that should be a fantastic night. Now, our videos for our RF viewers tonight, we won't be streaming these. We only go out on RF. That ABC television interview with the Paul in Alaska, that's on there. We've got a fascinating one from Vertasium. Vertasium, yeah, I've actually spelled that wrong. Which is a science channel on synchronization and the natural systems that are out there, which are very relevant to RF, around synchronization and synchronizing particular things in nature. Then there's a couple by a young filmmaker called Jared Singh, very short little ones, but they're actually on Tasmania, very well produced ones on Tasmania, and there happened to be one in there called Winter in Tasmania, so I included that one as well. And then I will finish off with Andrew Elwell's presentation about the Pawsey Supercomputing Centre for those people who missed it last week. So so that's our videos for tonight. So I think without further ado, I'll bid Rex farewell.
Okay.
And we'll head to our videos. So 73, and we'll catch you next week.